2 ready to head out. Here's Tomoyuki Yamanaka setting his lap time. He goes into 4th fastest currently. What about Andrew Brooks? He goes up into P4, demotes the Japanese driver on home soil down now into 5th position. So that's the first group then done here, Jimmy. The first 8 drivers out on track. We've got Beauvoir, Lekowski, Lopez, Serrano, Kokubun, Karatsa, Miyazono and Inestrosa to come here.
That's right, we do. Right now it's Mangano leading from Gallo and Rick Kevlin. And again, look how close that is. That is 0.03 of a second between 1st and 3rd. And I looked it up the other day, by the way, when you asked about it. It's 1/10 of a second to blink. So 1/3 of the time it takes you to blink. That is the gap right now between our top 3 drivers.
I'm looking forward to see what Baptiste Beauvoir can do. Of course, driver who we have held in very high esteem and was incredibly quick in the EMEA regional finals as well here in the GR Yaris. This, of course, a brand new car to GT Sport as well, and it's a car that you and I are particularly fond of.
We sat in it earlier. We have one here on our set, and because we're children, we sat in it and pretend to drive it around. We aren't allowed to start it. No, a man comes over and gives you a slap on the wrist if you start it. So, but very cool car again. Great to have it in GT Sport represented here. If you're unfamiliar, 4-wheel drive, 260 horsepower from a 3-cylinder, 1.6-litre engine. And pretty light as well, given it's a homologation special. I think it's like 1,300 kilos, 1280, something like that. Pretty rapid.
Yeah, exactly. It's been developed, of course, in conjunction with Toyota Gazoo Racing, the racing department within Toyota, and it's designed as a rally homologation special. As Jimmy said, the irony is it may not actually end up competing in rallies next year, because they're going to continue with the same model, and of course they go over to a new set of hybrid rules. But either way, it gives us a phenomenal road car here, and we've got Baptiste Beauvoir behind the wheel. So, of course, unlike what we have seen in the manufacturer series, these drivers actually only have the medium and the hard compound of tyres available to them in the first race. So lap times perhaps wouldn't be as quick as if they were on the softs.
No, but they are racing medium and racing hard tyres. Usually we see road cars a sport tyre being chosen, but this time we're being nice. We're giving them full racing slicks. They're going to get a lot of time out of this Yaris. As you can see there, Baptiste Beauvoir, nice neat tidy through there, Baptiste. Yes, there you go, nice. Now these cars are prone to understeer, as you would imagine from a 4-wheel drive car, which is basically when you turn into a corner and the car doesn't go where you want it to. It goes a bit wider than that, and you can avoid that in this car by using the brake to rotate, then having a nice soft application of the throttle. Here is Cody Lekowski, someone who we don't really know for his soft applications of the throttle, usually quite an aggressive driver, but not quite been on the pace recently in the last few series we've been in, and he's somebody who's been on every step of the podium apart from the top one.
Yes, exactly, and we know how quick he can be, of course, Cody Lekowski, but seems to have been a little bit off colour if we looked at this manufacturer series performance here very recently. Let's hope he can turn things around, though, in the Nations Cup. Someone who did impress us, the guy we just looked at a few moments ago, was Angel Inestrosa. The Chilean driver, of course, won the manufacturer series with Porsche last year in the World Tour at Tokyo, put in a very strong performance with Porsche yesterday in the manufacturer series as well. Likewise, Adriano Karatsa, I think he's really got to be one to watch here for this.
I think so. I mean, Karatsa, Serrano as well, which said Miyazono, who has yet to do his qualifying lap. These are big names here. Lopez, we say usually a very quick guy. I think, strategy was on his side in the regionals. So I think maybe out and out pace, he might not quite have the same level of speed as the top guys. But we all know sometimes it isn't about being the absolute fastest driver. Sometimes it's about being the smartest. So a couple of drivers now coming to the line, set their times. This is Baptiste Beauvoir. Let's see what he can do. A 1:49.6 to beat from Giorgio Mangano. He goes 2 tenths outside of that. That's good enough for 5th. Cody's a little bit further behind still, so expect 7th or 8th position from this time. It's a 1:59.7. Goes to, actually beats Baptiste. That's faster through the line. Kokubun on the good lap as well.
Yeah, not bad here for Ryota Kokubun then as he heads towards the line. 10th of a second down here for him, so it could be inside the top 5 for the Japanese driver. He gets ready to come towards the timing line, breaks the beam now. Then where is Ryota going to go? It's a top 4 instead. Nicely done there for him. Angel Inestrosa, not a bad lap time so far for him. Couple of tenths of a second shy into the 3rd sector. Gains a bit of time coming down the start-finish straight. It was Jose Serrano who was very quick in the 1st sector and the 2nd sector, not far away in the 3rd sector. Loses a little bit of time, but look at that, just less than a 10th of a second away, and still it's only 4th position for him on the grid. Adriano Karatsa going for the line now here. not a lap time to ride home about, just less than half a second, and he is down in 14th position on the grid. Koke Lopez, though, is the man who we're looking at now. 7th position for him. It's Takuma Miyazono. He was so quick in the first sector, fastest of the lot of them, fastest in the second sector, fastest in the third sector. He heads towards the line now here at Fuji. Where is it going to be for the Japanese driver? Takuma Miyazono takes pole position at the end of the session. What a lap there for the Japanese driver on home soil here at Fuji Speedway. He obliterates the competition and takes P1. Well, news just in that Koke Lopez and Lucas Benelli have taken penalties after qualifying for exceeding the track limits on their only hot laps. That's going to spice things up, certainly, as we get ready to go racing here at the Fuji Speedway ahead of race 1 for the Nations Cup World Finals. The Fuji Speedway plays host to race 1 of the Nations Cup, a world final. The Toyota GR Yaris is the car. And we're here in Japan with a Japanese driver who starts on pole position. It's Takuma Miyazono who qualifies at the head of the field. Alongside him on the front row is the Italian Giorgio Mangano. What is he going to be able to do? Alongside him on the second row of the grid, it is Valerio Gallo, his fellow compatriot, with Rick Kevelam for company. The Dutchman lines up in P4. Third row is headed by Jose Serrano, P5 for him. Not a bad lap time at all there. And he has got Ryota Kokubun for company alongside. Next row of the grid is comprised of Angel Inestrosa, the Chilean driver, inside the top 10. With Koke Lopez, of course, taking that penalty after qualifying for exceeding track limits. He lines up P8. Andrew Brooks heads to the next row of the grid, just inside the top 10. And then completing that top 10 is Cody Nicola Lakovsky. Work to do for him from down there on the grid. Next up is Baptiste Beauvoir. Again, a difficult qualifying for the Frenchman. He needs to try and turn his fortunes around. Has got Tomoyuki Yamanaka for company alongside him. And the next row of the grid, Patrick Blajan, the Hungarian driver. And his countryman Adam Tapai alongside. And then the final row of the grid is comprised of Lucas Benelli, another driver who took that penalty, of course, following track limits in qualifying. Adriano Carrazza, his compatriot, completes the grid in 16th and last position. So then, ready for the start of this race. 13 laps ahead of it for our drivers at the Fuji International Speedway. Takuma Miyazono, Giorgio Mangano, Valerio Gallo and Rick Kevelam on the front 2 rows of the grid. What is going to happen down towards that first corner? We're about to find out. 5 red lights come on then here at the Fuji International Speedway. And racing is underway then. Takuma Miyazono leads the field away as we go down towards that first corner. Immediately cuts over from Giorgio Mangano. Keep an eye out for Valerio Gallo. Rick Kevelam trying to go for the inside line, but getting squeezed towards the inside of the circuit. Miyazono is having to try and defend, but Mangano's trying to come up the inside. In the background, you can see Serrano trying to go the long way around the outside, but not able to find a way through there. So Miyazono holds on from Mangano, from Gallo, from Kevelam, from Serrano, and Inestrosa is squabbling there with Kokubun for P6 as they come into turn 3.
Yeah, dream start there for Miyazono, getting that all done and dusted and getting into the lead on the first corner. He is being carried though by Mangano and Gallo there. Valerio Gallo, watch out for him. He likes to lead from the front, finally getting a good qualifying position this time around, so he might be able to do it. Goes for an attack on Giorgio Mangano, very late on the brakes, dives to the inside, gets a move made. I think he's going side by side with his fellow Italian, but Giorgio is not going to give up. More importantly, Mangano will have the inside line for the next corner.
And Mangano stays ahead into the next corner. It's down into turn 10 where we could see some dive bombs being made. It's one of the few overtaking opportunities here, and Gallo pulls out from Mangano. In the background there you can see Inestrosa having some contact there with Jose Serrano, with all concertinas up through that corner. Kevelam's now on the inside, contact there with Benelli as well. At the background he's got a track limit penalty, a 1-second penalty there as you can see. So Jose Serrano's on the inside of Rick Kevelam. Meanwhile, as we come through the final sector, Kevelam's going to switch it left and going to have the inside line for the next corner, holds on for that 4th place. So we were mentioning about those drivers who got penalties. They are now serving that in the race, as it turns out.
So coming on now to the end of the final lap through the hairpin again. Getting a good run out of here is very important. Mangano about half a second back from Miyazono at the moment. Gallo there still holding on in 3rd, and Rick Kevelam in 4th, Serrano in 5th. A little bit messy through the first lap. Everyone's trying to make the best use of being as close as possible in these first few laps to make up places. And Gallo Inestrosa right up in the slipstream of Jose Serrano. Will he dive to the right and try and make a move? 240 kilometers an hour down the straight. This little Yaris really does shift, I'll tell you that now. Angelo Inestrosa going for the move, a little bit late on the brakes there, dive to the the apex. Nice block pass there, you like to see that, and that slows Serrano right up. Kokeman nowhere to go. Contact with the back of a Spanish driver, and now slots him back behind.
Well, there we go. That could have been a lot nastier than it actually was. Good reactions there from Ryota Kokeman there to just keep off the back for the most part of Jose Serrano. As you say, nowhere to go there. Nothing that he could do. You see Coque Lopez with the red flashing dot next to you on the left-hand side of your screen. He has got Andrew Brooks and Patrick Blajan very close for company. Here's Serrano versus Kokeman part 2 then. Into the left-hander we go. The Spaniard just holding on a little bit wide, missing the apex. That allows Kokeman to pull alongside on corner exit. They run side by side. Then as they come out in towards the right-hander of turn number 9, headed down in towards turn 10. Serrano once again has the inside line coming down into here. Kokeman's got the outside line, has got good momentum though, goes the long way around the outside and is ahead before they get to the braking zone. Great driving here from Ryota Kokeman.
Yeah, really difficult to go 2 by 2 into there. In fact, I wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to catch the guys in front. Kokeman a little bit wide on the track limits there. Stewards will be having a look at that. The hazards were flashing for a second there on Kokeman's car. I think that's a message saying let's catch these guys. Let's not fight too much between us, because they both know that 6th and 7th don't really mean that much in the grand scheme of things. You want to be up towards the head of the field. We're still on board with Jose Serrano at the moment. A good look at the lines through this last corner. You see, you take quite a shallow apex and you go, you run wide on the throttle. Four-wheel drive pushes the car wide towards the edge of the circuit, and that's how you get the best corner exit. But this little group now, as Coque Lopez serves his penalty there, this little group has fallen back from the top 5.
Meanwhile, you can see Blajan, Beauvoir and Lakovsky all under investigation for a collision. We didn't see what happened on the screen. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of a replay on that one a little bit later on. Steve, I wonder if you've got any information on that?
At the moment, no. I'm going to have to look through. I mean, I'm flicking through all the incidents. There's about 1 million at the moment, so I'm going to have a look through some of them and hopefully I can get back to you.
A nice, clean race start then, I think that's what Steve was trying to say. But I think that came on the first lap. We had the big sort of dog pile into the hairpin there. I think there were a couple of biffs that we didn't quite see. Hopefully Steve can sift through that for us. Meanwhile, back to the race. Gallo not quite able to challenge Mangano. Great to see Giorgio up there, isn't it? He's not usually been at the top of the field so far. And again, my favourite stat is that he was our first ever World Tour winner back in 2018. So maybe he can... repeat that success. Patrick Blajan, by the way, given a 3-second penalty for contact, so obviously being a little bit naughty.
Dear oh dear there for the Hungarian Patrick Blajan with that penalty. His countryman Adam Tapai down in 13th position there as well, so not a good race for the Hungarian drivers as it stands. You can see Mangano is really close onto the back of Takuma Miyazono in this middle sector of the lap as we head in towards the final sector now then. One wonders whether Mangano is going to try and mount a challenge. Just to remind you, of course, the drivers who have started on the medium should be a little bit quicker at the start of this race, but we are expecting pit stops to take place in the mid stages around about lap 6 or 7 or so is when we should see drivers changing over towards the harder compound of tyres. But let's see what is going to happen here over the course of this one and see how it develops.
Right now, of those hard runners, Andrew Brooks is leading that little pack. He's made his way nicely up through the field there, which is a good start for Andrew Brooks. He's definitely an outside shot as well. Watch him. He's always been incredibly fast in the past, but unfortunately is usually on the receiving end of quite a bit of bad luck. Here is the view on board from Jose Serrano. That's a rather big back end there of the Toyota in front, isn't it? Thick's thick. Love the back of that Toyota, but Serrano not really able to find anywhere by. The slipstream, whilst it is there, not really enough to be able to pull alongside and do anything.
It's a flipping long straight, this, of the Fuji speed. Oh, somebody missing the apex there. That was that looks like it was Yamanaka who was checking out the scenery.
That's
here.
Brooks.
It was Brooks, in fact, yeah, going a little bit wide into that first corner, just checking out the scenery going into turn number 1. They gather things up without losing too much time, but that's not the line you want to be having through those first couple of corners here.
He actually lost the place there, Tom, to Yamanaka, so he went wide. Yamanaka took the place, and now he's leading the sort of second group of runners on the hard tyre, so easy to do that down there. We saw it the other day with Gallo and the Supras, where he just missed the braking zone somewhat, and he's just a passenger until the car finally slows down.
Steve, I believe you got some information on the collision between Beauvoir, Lakovsky and also Patrick Blajan there.
Yeah, just had a look at the replay. It was Blajan down into turn 10, which we're looking at now, and he just went for a very overly ambitious dive.
Here we go.
And you can see it here, yeah, and the result of it is Beauvoir is down the back of the field 4 seconds off the pack.
Oh, look at
wow.
that. Yeah,
Off he goes.
Straight over the front nose of the Japanese driver there as well. And turned around. Oh dear, not good there for Baptiste Beauvoir. Writes a penalty there, good call from the stewards, in my opinion. Meanwhile, here he is, Takuma Miyazono, who we ride on board with, still with Giorgio Mangano for company. These drivers just running so close to one another. And that's the thing when we have just one car type in the race, in that it's essentially spec racing this, it does come down a lot to driver ability.
Well, it is spec racing. We've had this conversation before about how these drivers are so at the top of their game that everybody is braking at the latest possible point, getting on the front as soon as possible. And when that happens, of course, it makes it quite difficult to make any moves. Speaking of moves, here comes Giorgio Mangano, who for now is opting to stay where he is. I think that's a bit of clever driving there by Giorgio. He knows that he can't win the race on lap 5, so he's going to try and stay with him. I say that. He then dives up the inside. I'll be quiet. Giorgio goes for the lead, then up into first place he goes, and now he'll be giving the tow on the way around. Is Giorgio going to have enough pace to get away from Miyazono, though?
Just to mention, fuel shouldn't be too much of a concern, so it's not like he needs to sit behind him in order to save fuel over the course of this one. They can drive pretty much flat out from start to finish, but now Miyazono's got to keep a watchful eye on his mirrors, because the other Italian in this race, Valerio Gallo, is all over the rear bumper of his GR Yaris, and I wonder whether the Italians are going to try and make a break for it. Down the inside dives Gallo into the left-hander, and into second position he goes. So it's now the Italians leading 1 and 2. Mangano ahead of Gallo, a little bit wide on the exit there for Gallo. Miyazono pulls back alongside, or at least tries to, has to come back into the slipstream as they head down into T10.
That's interesting there. All of a sudden, Miyazono dropping off the pace, it seems, down to third, but Mangano and Gallo now up into first and second. Again, keep an eye out for Gallo. He's been so fast online, almost untouchable in the online series. Yep, in these events, he always seems to struggle somewhat, but we know he likes to lead from the front of the race. He's now there with his fellow countryman, Giorgio Mangano. This is where he's going to be at his strongest, so keep an eye out for the Italian there.
Yeah, Valerio Gallo, of course, a driver who we hold in very high esteem and was level pegging with Baptiste Beauvoir for the majority of the EMEA regional finals. Made a complete haulings of the last race, unfortunately, and the results don't really do him justice if you look at where he finished over in the overall standings there. But he's here in these races, and he's proving exactly why he is here in these races, fighting at the sharp end of the field.
And this is peak Beauvoir, unfortunately, in these races, to find himself 4 seconds off the back after a crash that isn't his fault. That's happened a couple of times to him as well, and I'm sure there'll be some choice French words being uttered at the moment. But still in the race, of course, we have 3 races today. First 2 double points, and the last race being double points, so still everything to play for. On board Miyazono as we come down towards T1. You see his braking inputs there on the left, his throttle inputs on the right, and just as I say, the director takes it away. But it's really interesting to just see how these guys drive, the techniques that are involved in getting these cars around the circuit in the fastest way possible. There is Miyazono then coming into 100R, this long right-hander, and in this car, I'll be honest, it's not very fun in this car because of the understeer, because of the four-wheel drive. You can see how careful you've got to be in that front pedal there.
Yeah, it's like pushing a shopping trolley around that's completely full. It just understeers and understeers and understeers all over the place. Just having a look, you can see from the wide shot we saw a few moments ago, the gap from 7th place back to Tomoyuki Yamanaka. So the top 7 are essentially running nose to tail in this race, and then there's quite a pronounced gap, 4.2 seconds as it stands between them and Tomoyuki Yamanaka, which brings up the next gap. So we've kind of got splinter groups as we're used to seeing in these races. That's kind of what happens in these spec races. You see them splintering off as they have done, but it's a big old group at the front of this field.
Well, yeah, it's just medium versus hard runners, and that will probably switch over when the pit stops come. Now, if you're on that medium tyre, you want to try and make it go as quick as you can, and maybe against logic, you will run the medium tyre longer than you run the hard tyre, because the hard tyre is just that much slower that you want to try and... Basically, the hard tyre is lava. Think of it that way. You don't want to be on it at all. On board now from Mangano, getting a look back from the rear quarter panel. You see the big train of cars behind Mount Fuji, very picturesque in the background there. You don't have much time to stop and admire the view when you're ragging a car around here. There's a big line of cars down the straight, all slipstreaming each other at this point. Now I'm interested to see what Miyazono's going to do here, because he was leading this pack a couple of laps ago. Now he's down in 3rd. Maybe it's his turn to play the racing game.
It could well be. Yeah, let's see what happens. We're definitely in the pit window now. We're expecting drivers to come in, and some of them have done. The hard tyre runners now coming in, all switching over to mediums. Benelli and Beauvoir on the last lap, laps 5. At the end of that, they came in to change over their tyres. Now it is the rest of the hard runners, pretty much, bar Tapai and Lukovsky, as you can see, who have all come in to change over to the medium compound. Just looking at Tomoyuki Yamanaka, putting a new set of medium boots on his car, ready to come out of the pit lane. Where is he going to emerge as it stands? Out in P10. There is Baptiste Beauvoir, meanwhile, well, who has, of course, made his mandatory pit stop in this race already. He was quite a way further down the field, so probably felt as though he had to do something different to try and break up some ground.
Steve, mate, you've been watching some of the strategies here and some of the drivers. What have you got for us?
Yeah, it just looks like at the moment it's one of those trains that we often see, and it's really a case of who's going to blink first. Now, all of the hard runners just did 6 laps. At the end of this 7th lap, there's going to be 6 laps left of the race, so it'd be interesting to see if the medium runners come in at the end of this one.
You can see the live points rankings on the right-hand side of the screen. Cheers for that insight there, Steve. You can see Takuma Miyazono, of course, he came into this World Final, has come into this World Final with the most advantage. 11 points he has gained as a result of his positions in the regional finals, and, of course, carrying over some points as well from Sydney earlier on this year. Now sits, as it stands, if the race finished as it was, with 19 points, but, of course, he'd like to get as much of an advantage as possible going into races 2 and 3. But the crucial question is here, are we going to see anybody coming into the pit lane at the end of this lap? All moving over towards the right-hand side of the circuit. Is anybody going to make any moves coming into the pit lane? Takuma Miyazono is, and there's a train of cars following them in the form of Kevelam, Inestrosa, Kokubun and Serrano. So it's only the top 2 that stay out again.
You might be thinking, well, online at home, if I were to dive into the pit lane, I wouldn't make it so obvious. But here there are some very strict rules around white lines that we saw a little bit in the regional finals, especially here at Fuji. So the 2 Italians are left out on their own at the front on that medium tyre. So they're going to have the lap of their lives now, because although they are going for a harder compound of tyre, Miyazono and the gang behind, their tyres will be fresher. They'll be a little bit quicker at this point as well, so we might be seeing the undercut, if you're familiar, of course, with Formula 1 and that term. So here's Miyazono, the train of cars behind Inestrosa, Kevelam, Kokubun and Serrano in that train. Again, great to see Angel Inestrosa doing so well.
I think Inestrosa might have made a mistake. He's gone onto the medium compound of tyres. He's gone onto the mediums. He's done exactly what Igor Fraga did at this very circuit in Paris last year. Changed over from the compound onto exactly the same compound. So he's going to have to make another pit stop, and it's thrown away all of the hard work that Inestrosa has made here. Dives down the inside of Rick Kevelam for P4, but it's all going to be in vain here for the Chilean driver, as he's now going to have to make another pit stop.
I'm laughing because that was actual peak commentator curse there. That was proper. You just got that wrong, Jimmy. But he was doing well. Unfortunately, making the mistake there. Anyway, we'll come back to Miyazono. Really, he won't have to worry about Inestrosa in that case behind him. But if anything, that'd be doing him a bit of a favour. He'll be breaking up the cars behind him whilst driving through. I'm looking to his driver cam to see if there's any sort of reaction from him. He doesn't look particularly happy, from what I can see. So. We have sometimes had errors in the past with graphics, but it does look like this time it is just a mistake from his part. It seems to happen at Fuji, doesn't it?
Yeah, just looking at the timing screen and confirmation that he is definitely on the medium compound of tyres, so not good at all there for Angel Inestrosa. Now the 2 leaders, Mangano and Gallo, come into the pit lane then. They're going to go onto the hard compound of tyre. Where are they going to emerge as a result of their pit stops then? Let's see what's going to happen. They're coming into the pit lane now, but the race leaders are already coming down the start-finish straight, so the Italians could end up at the back of this group here. Let's see what is going to happen with them as they come round, and I'm fairly certain that they're going to be overhauled by them, or at least it's going to be very close. They come out of the pit lane then. Look at this side-by-side between Miyazono and Inestrosa, and here comes Gallo and Mangano out of the pit lane then. This is super close, but somehow Mangano and Gallo hold on. Here's Inestrosa on the inside of Gallo. He goes through into second place at the exit of turn 1, and now look in the background because Miyazono fancies a slice of the action up the hill in towards turn 3. Miyazono not able to find a way past, but Gallo losing a position to Inestrosa.
Inestrosa there just sneaking on through, making the use of that medium tyre. Now he's going to go after Mangano as well. Again, this is actually a bit of a godsend for Miyazono behind, because he's going to be just disturbing the cars in front, which is going to allow Miyazono to get a little bit closer as we come through the middle section now, down the hill towards the hairpin. You want to be on the right-hand side here if you're going for an overtaking manoeuvre. A great place if you're good on the brakes to chuck it up the inside, but Miyazono not quite close enough for that. Will Inestrosa have a go, though? He's sort of got to just go for it now and hope for the best. I don't think if this is on purpose that this strategy is the way to go, as he jumps up the inside of Mangano, forces him onto the curb. They're still side by side, and Inestrosa comes out worse there, and Gallo's going to get back by. Absolute disaster for Inestrosa, but he's not going to take that line down. Lunges up the inside now. He's on the wrong side for the next left-hander coming up. He's going to get hit wide. Just contact there. And, yep, Inestrosa down to third.
Sorry to cut in front of you there, Jimmy. It's all so frantic, this one, isn't it? And he just needed to be patient there in Inestrosa. He just wasn't. He tried to get a bit greedy coming into there, and it cost him more than he gained.
It happens sometimes, and again, this is a bit of a disaster for Inestrosa. If he is planning this strategy, he needs to be at the front now and putting away, and that is not happening. So at this rate, he'll be far, far down the pack when all the pit stops are done.
Meanwhile, here is Cocoburn versus Jose Serrano coming down the start-finish straight, coming in towards the business end of this race. Steve, I mean, Jimmy briefly mentioned there about the possibility of this strategy being on purpose. I can't see a way that that's going to be the case here for him. What do you reckon here for Inestrosa?
I think he's just made a mistake. It takes about 18 seconds to do a pit stop, so unless he can somehow gain 18 seconds or about 9 seconds per lap in the next 2 laps, I don't think it's going to work out for him.
If he was in the Red Bull X 2019, I'd say, yeah, no problem, but maybe not.
It's going to work out, unfortunately, for him.
Not this time. That's a shame for Angal, but we'll focus on the leader instead. Mangano and Gallo, 2 Italians. This is a good show up for the Italian drivers, isn't it? This could be a 1-2 here in the first round of the World Final Nations Cup here as Gallo defends from Inestrosa. Must be very frustrating to have to deal with Inestrosa knowing that he won't be there at the end of the race, but of course doing his best to try and disturb the rest of the drivers at the moment. It's going to be Mangano leads down the hill again, Gallo behind. Will Inestrosa go for another move this time? Let's have a look. Coming downhill, Gallo goes defensive, drives down the middle of the circuit, comes back across to take the race line. Serrano in the background tries to get by Cocoburn. Cocoburn moved quite late there to defend, so I'm interested to see if he does get by. Serrano manages to sneak by on the outside, is driven onto the curb by Cocoburn, and Yamanaka is going to take both of them and run the foul sweep while they were busy squabbling between them, but they didn't see the samurai in the mirror, and he slides by up into 6th place.
Lovely job there. Here comes Andrew Brooks now on the inside of Cocoburn into the left-hander. Is the Canadian going to be able to get through? He's not going to have track position, but Cocoburn runs out of room. He runs out of road. He's off the track. He's back on. He's back into 8th position there. Did he use the circuit to gain an advantage? Did he just run a little bit wide as he understeered through that corner? We'll wait and see whether the stewards have to have a look at it. Don't think they'll be deciding that too much. Meanwhile, coming over the timing line, the race leaders, Giorgio Mangano versus Valerio Gallo. Angel Inestrosa here in 3rd position. And surely he knows he's got a pit. He knows he's going to have made that mistake, and he knows he's going to have to go by before too long. Meanwhile, here is Gallo versus Mangano for the race lead, and Inestrosa's going to join the party as well. Side by side with the 2 Italians down to the first corner. Mangano on the inside, Gallo on the outside, late on the brakes from Gallo. Mangano's got the apex though. Gallo's a little bit wide through there, but he holds firm, and he gets the race lead then as they come side by side up the hill into T3.
I think Mangano maybe a little bit cautious because he thought Inestrosa was going to come by as well, and as a result Gallo managed to go all the way around the outside and get the position. Great overtaking move from Gallo, and now he is in the lead of this race, exactly where he likes to be. So let's see if he can defend it. 2 laps to go at this point. Again, Inestrosa still in the mix there in that medium compounder tyre. We expect him to have to pit towards the end. Maybe a bit of contact between him and Mangano now as we come again down the hill towards the right hand. A fantastic overtaking spot, and Inestrosa all over the back of Giorgio Mangano as we now descend down to the hairpin. Gallo goes defensive. He wants to try and keep his lead. Mangano then is going to go up the inside once again. Can he outbrake Gallo? No, he can't. Has to slot back in, and Inestrosa has no option but to do the same.
Steve, this is getting pretty frenetic at the front of this race. What are you thinking of it?
It's just absolutely brilliant racing. I was just looking at that Yamanaka move a couple of laps ago on the last lap. It just shows you these guys are on such a fine line. If you're going to go for a move, you have to make sure it works. Otherwise, the guy behind is just going to take advantage and go past the pair of you.
That's how it is round here. Yeah, it's just a matter of trying to keep things nice and neat and tidy. Otherwise, hello, what's this? Gallo's gone wide, he's bottled it. Inestrosa's going to go up the inside, and Mangano goes up into 1st as well. Gallo's going to have the toe down the straight behind his countryman, and Gallo, interestingly, decides to give the toe to Inestrosa instead. He does not. He's racing Gallo here as hard as possible. Doesn't matter that they're from the same country. Look at this. It's pack racing, just like stock cars down the straight, and Mangano leading the pack. Gallo trying to get a little bit of that side draft. They're boxing Inestrosa in at the moment. Will Gallo go for a repeat move of last time around? Looks around to the outside again. Doesn't quite have the same pace as last time. He's gone wide there. Inestrosa's going to take that place if he's not careful.
Very close on the corner exit, but just manages to hold it firm there, does Valerio Gallo. Coming up in the hill in towards turn 3. It's getting so close out in front. We're on the penultimate lap. We're going to flick it left. Here's the point standings. If the race finishes as it is, they're about as useful as a chocolate teapot, though, at the moment, because the race is definitely going to change the order before the end of this one. Here's Inestrosa having a little bit of a look against Valerio Gallo. Gallo's out wide, scrubbing speed off, understeering through there. He has to go defensive into the left-hander as they come through now. Inestrosa's going to have more grip underneath underneath him with the medium compound of tyre, and certainly keep an eye out for Tomoyuki Yamanaka in the background, who's going side by side with Miyazono. Yamanaka, of course, started on the hard tyre. He's now on the medium tyre. He's going to be quicker than the lot of these front competitors, and surely he is going to be a very worthy adversary coming into these final few corners and the last couple of laps.
Miyazono doing what he does best there and just sending it in alongside Inestrosa just to make him look, and Yamanaka now finding the space where there wasn't it, and he made the space up the inside. Goes Yamanaka on that medium compound tyre. He is a real threat for the win of this race if he can get by Inestrosa. Miyazono now having to defend from Serrano, who goes out wide to the inside though for the next right-hander. Rick Kevelam getting involved as well, and all of a sudden the race comes alive. Kevelam dives to the inside with Andrew Brooks as well. Serrano has to let them by on the outside, a bit of a bump as well, and you see now 2 by 2 going down the straight.
This is going to be so close then, coming down this start-finish straight for the penultimate time, and I wonder how many people will be trying to rehearse something for the final lap then, as we come on to that then. So it's Mangano that leads the way from Gallo, from Yamanaka. Inestrosa does finally pit. He gets himself out of this group onto the hard tyre for the final lap, but look at the race lead then. It's going to potentially change hands with Mangano versus Gallo, going side by side. Gallo on the inside, Mangano on the outside, 3 wide nearly in the background, as Gallo's up the inside, and he's through into the race lead out of turn 1.
Watch Yamanaka, he is on a charge right now on that medium compound tyre. These two squabbling have slowed them both up and put them into the clutches of Yamanaka behind. There you go, coming through the left-hander into 100R for the last time. And this is where the tyres on Yamanaka's GR Yaris are going to be much fresher, much better than the cars in front. Let's see if he can make a move down into this left-hander. Both of them sort of taking a semi-defensive line, cutting over late, and you see the speed difference on the apex there. Yamanaka just able to carry so much more pace through the corner and puts himself in a very aggressive position coming down to the end of the lap.
So coming through then into the right-hander, ready to head into turn 10. He needs to be very careful about how he picks off Mangano and Gallo if that's his plan. Coming down into T10, he's going to go for the move on second place. Up the inside goes Tomoyuki Yamanaka. Mangano defends it. He squeezes into the apex then. They're going to flick it left, but Yamanaka's got so much great grip going through there. But he runs out of road. There was contact between them. Here comes Serrano on the outside then. Nearly side by side as well with Yamanaka. Here's Kevelam on the inside, and he's through. So Yamanaka loses out then. Serrano is now into third place, and he's in the pound seat here. It's given enough of a gap for Gallo to able to clear off in front without too much drama. Mangano, though, in second place is on the defensive. And look at this up the inside, nearly Yamanaka. Oh, and Lopez up the inside of Yamanaka into the final corner as well. This is phenomenal. Gallo is going to take the win in race 1 of the Nations Cup here at Fuji. But who is going to get second place? It's a drag to the line between Mangano and Serrano then here at Fuji. What a race this has proven to be. Gallo takes the flag from Mangano in second, and Serrano in third ahead of Kevelam, Brooks, Lopez and Yamanaka. What a race!
I'm telling you now, there are going to be a lot of post-race investigations there, because Coco Lopez, to say the overtake was fair, well, that'd be a lie. He just chucked it in there, smashed Yamanaka off the line. And Yamanaka, who could have won this race, I think also he got forced out by Giorgio Mangano there, and as a result just tumbled down Yorda. I think he finished 7th in the end, and for someone who was challenging for the win, I think he really got done dirty there.
Yeah, that didn't work out at all there for Tomoyuki Yamanaka, but what a race for Valerio Gallo. You can't doubt his credentials in this one. An Italian 1-2 with Gallo finishing ahead of Mangano and Serrano completing the podium. Well, we've just about got our breath back then from that fantastic race 1, but race 2 is on the way very shortly indeed for the Nations Cup World Finals. We're at the Tokyo Expressway in the wet in Porsche 911s. It is going to be chaotic, I am sure, with 16 drivers all trying to battle for the same piece of tarmac. Speaking of battling for the same piece of tarmac, race 1 was exactly that at Fuji.
Yeah, standing start here. Great to see that, of course. Gave some great action down at T1, but it took 5 laps for Giorgio Mangano to finally get by Takuma Miyazono, the pole sitter. And it was very quickly followed through by fellow countryman Valerio Gallo.
Meanwhile, you can see towards the closing stages of the race, Angel Inestrosa on the medium compound of tyre. That was a strategy mistake. He would have to pit and then would be out of this squabble for the race lead. Meanwhile, Giorgio Mangano versus Valerio Gallo. They went side by side down the start-finish straight and into the first corner. Gallo, amazingly, managing to hold it all the way around the outside for the first turn. Proper commitment.
Yeah, great respect between the two drivers there. You have to have that, otherwise that ends in tears. And that move would happen pretty much exactly the same on the lap after, this time with Angel Inestrosa still in the mix despite the strategy mistake. But then on the last lap, Yamanaka tried going for a move on Mangano and then just got completely shuffled down. Yildiz Serrano getting by, Kevlin getting by, and Yamanaka would end up finishing a lowly 7th place.
Valerio Gallo taking the spoils at the checkered flag ahead of Giorgio Mangano and Jose Serrano. You can see the rest of the drivers coming through, and exactly what that race result meant for Valerio Gallo to take the spoils in race 1 of the Nations Cup World Finals. He sits at the top of the pile after that one, then ahead of Giorgio Mangano, Jose Serrano, Rick Kevlin somehow inheriting 4th on the final lap ahead of Andrew Brooks. A solid start for the Canadian. Lopez, Yamanaka, Kokubun and Miyazono inside the top 10, with Lakowski rounding it out. Depay, Benelli, Karatza, Blajan and Beauvoir down in 15th position. Goodness me. This is going to be exciting to see what it means later on here today, because this is the points rankings, of course, that reflects the results in the first race to an extent, of course, because some have World Tour points. So, for example, Valerio Gallo now sits with 17 points, 2 points ahead of Jose Serrano.
Yeah, very close at the top at the moment. It will be, of course, till we get going. Race 2 coming up very shortly. Another 12 points up for grabs, with double points, of course, in our final race. So far from over.
Well, let's head over to Julia then, shall we? She is with our race 1 winner, Valerio Gallo.
Hey, Valerio, how are you doing after that race? That was intense. You and Mangano, I thought you were going to do something, and then someone's going to spin up. My heart is racing. How's your heart doing?
My heartbeat is exploding right now. I can't even talk because I'm so stressed. So, man, yeah.
Yeah?
Very tough.
I mean, how did you keep your focus when your heart is racing like that? How do you keep technical in your driving when literally your entire body is like, ah?
Yeah, because I know that if I get lost from the pressure, I will really lose the control and also lose all the, let's say, sometimes even the memory of what you do. So let's say, it's really hard because I had a lot of cars to fight with, and yeah, it's a really particular situation.
It got really weird there. There was literally just all boxed in, stock rally racing cars all together. It was so close at some points. It was just, I don't know how you kept your cool. I mean, how did you decide how far to push it against Mangano? I mean, you want to obviously, yeah. I mean, how far do you know how to push it without pushing it too far and making a mistake?
Let's say, as from Giorgio when he overtook Miyazono, I thought, okay, let's stay behind him because otherwise we lose time fighting each other. So in the last laps, let's say I tried the overtake because I knew with the slipstream it's very easy to overtake. Yeah. And yeah, it was. I had to say it was a really close racing, but very tough. Even if I feel like I could maybe leave a little bit of space more to Giorgio, but it was so intense. Also the tire wear, it was so serious at that moment. So.
I mean, this is the thing, I think a lot of people look at, Gran Turismo, sim racing and think oh, just driving. You have to think about a lot of things all at once. I don't know how you do it, but whatever you did this time, it totally worked because here you are. You've just got to keep that focus going into the next race. So good luck, Valerio, and hopefully we'll get to have another chat again in a few minutes.
Thank you.
It's about time in the show where we lean on our expert, Jimmy Broadbent, to give us some tips and techniques. I believe this time for Tokyo Expressway. Is that right there, Jimmy?
Yeah, that's right, Julia. The guys behind the scenes have been very mean to me, and they're giving me a Group 3 car with no traction control in the wet at Tokyo Expressway. So we're going to do our best to try and show you around. Luckily, I had Steve with me a bit earlier on to give me some more tips. But, of course, wet weather, which means very slippy, very slidey. So nice and easy on the low pedal on the right. If you don't know where that is, then maybe you need to go back to basics first. And now we go down the very, very long start-finish straight here. This is when you can check your socials, check in with your mum, see how she's doing, bring her a cup of tea if you fancy it. More importantly, check out the gap behind you, because if you're one of our Nations Cup finalists today, this is a place where you can slipstream by someone, then be slipstreamed by them, and then slipstream them again down into T1. So it's a proper high-speed chess game down here, as you can see. 6th gear all the way down, back out the tunnel, back into the wet. Wipers there going. Now, our first braking zone of the course is coming up on the left-hand side. I want to brake just after the 150, about 125 or so. So we're going to aim to do that well. all the way to the left-hand side of the circuit. Hammer the brakes. A bit early, carry third through there. Second gear is a little bit aggressive. That understeer there in the wet weather. Get back downhill, brake early. Try and focus on getting a nice straight line out of the corner, because if you're accelerating while turning, you're more likely to spin it, which I've done many times in practice. But ignore that. Through this fast section now, really fun section in the dry, treacherous in the wet, especially when you're racing with 11 other cars around you. Nice and easy through here. Now we start to slow it down a bit. The corner opens up quite a bit though on exit, so you can take some speed through here. Aim for the wall, but don't touch it. This right-hander goes on for a very long time. Very late turning point here. Again, you can open up the corner quite a lot on the exit, so get on the throttle nice and early. Trust the grip will be there, even in these wet conditions. It's down another gear. There you go. So really the ideal line round here is just to aim at the walls. It sounds quite counterproductive when you put it like that, but aim to get near them, not to touch them. Easy, easy, easy. And now we come back to where you started, where we came back on board for the final corner. Braking is super important here. It's also one of the best overtaking zones on the circuit. So we're going to try and brake just before this green sun up above here. There you go. Brake in a straight line too. Now you could use first gear here to turn, but I'd recommend second on exit, because you get loads and loads of wheel spin, which is not fun. And then get your paper out, get comfy, drive to the line. Takes a while to get there, but that is essentially a lap of Tokyo in the wet. And do you fancy a go, Jules? It's pretty fun.
I mean, yeah, you know what? I think it'd be fine. There's enough straights on there I could probably manage in my heels. Yeah?
No.
Yeah? Oh.
I've seen you drive.
To be fair, Jimmy, the only time you've actually seen me driving was in high heels in a Porsche GT3 car at like the 2018 finals. So I don't really feel like that's a fair representation of my full driving repertoire. I just feel like I should say that now. Now, speaking of a driver who is much more capable than I am, Coque Lopez. Now, I sort of feel like in the first race he didn't really kind of get the wind in his sails as he usually does. So I do think in race 2 he's going to be one to look out for. And if you don't know too much about him, take a look at this.
If I was in baseball, maybe I would try to spy someone that I really like to the girls' room. I cannot say that, no? I'm Coque Lopez, I'm from Spain, and I'm currently driving for Williams eSport team. My year is being different because of COVID, so I've been training more than other years. I could describe myself as a hardworking person, persistent and strategist. It's okay, no? My favorite food is, of course, bread. I think the nerves you feel when you are before the race is what I miss more. The live event is much more different than at home. My favorite GT car is the Super Formula SF19. My favorite GT track, there are two, but Barcelona, of course, because it's Spain, and also Autopolis. There are two moments from 2019 which are my favorites. One is when I did the pole position in the Nürburgring World Tour, but the other one is when I got the second place for BMW in the Manufacturer Series at Tokyo. My goal for this year is to try to improve the result of last year. Now it's time maybe to fight for the podium. My biggest addiction is having fun. I could say all the Gran Turismo players to give a try to the FIA Championships, because they are so fun. When you race, you start to get more comfortable with the racing. So let's try to fight and make it all together.
Coque Lopez has to be one of the most dedicated Gran Turismo drivers we have. I don't think he will ever not be doing this, because that's how much he loves it. Speaking of which, though, why don't we see just how he does in race 2? Let's find out. Let's go over to Tom and Jimmy.
Yeah, cheers, Julia. Nice to hear there from Coque Lopez, getting a bit more background information on the speedy Spaniard.
Yeah, exactly. Not really the best race for him there, but a good recovery, I think, after that penalty in qualifying.
And a couple more opportunities for him to try and turn things around there as well. Race 2 is coming up very, very shortly. Let's take a look, shall we, at the circuit details. We are at the Tokyo Expressway. This is a fictional track on GT Sport, being based kind of around the real world of Tokyo, essentially. You can see there, it's got a long straight, it's got a few corners, it's got some fast and flowing, and some slow ones there as well.
The straight is long enough to do a lot of things down there. You can basically slipstream someone, be slipstream back, and then overtake them again in the slipstream down the T1. So the strategy is going to be a big deal around it. And of course, in the wet as well, there is no room for error here. There's no runoff, there's no grass, just barriers to greet you when you make a mistake.
Yeah, 13 laps for our drivers, a rolling start, which hopefully will stop them wheel spinning away too much away from the grid, because otherwise I think they'd probably all be facing the wrong way and we'd be looking at the backside of a Porsche.
Well, I reckon we're going to see someone anyway, actually, to be honest, but should be a good one here, I reckon.
Race 2 qualifying then is underway. 5 minutes now remaining of the session. The first lap times for the first group of drivers coming in then. This is the Tokyo Expressway in absolutely sopping wet conditions. Patrick Blajan hits the top of the pile. What about Adam Tapai? Nothing to write home about for him because he's 4.5 tenths adrift in that third sector, and it's just one big long straight. Does manage to gain a bit of time back. Only goes 4th quickest, the slowest out of all the runners who have set a time then.
Yeah, interesting circuit round here for qualifying. It's all about being smooth, and qualifying usually is about maximum attack as Benelli slots into 4th place. Valerio Gallo, our race 1 winner, he want to try and repeat a decent result in this qualifying session, and he does, up into 2nd place, just behind Patrick Blajan, who took the provisional pole for now. Here's Smoky Yamanaka, who had an awful time at the end of the last race. I mean, again, that one's going to be continuing too, because he's 2nd off the pace at the moment, comes across the line and actually 7th place by quite a way.
Dear oh dear, this could be potentially back of the grid for Tomoyuki Yamanaka, depending on what happens. Andrew Brooks goes up into P2. Nice job from the Canadian driver, just under 2 tenths of a second shy from the rest of the field. Now, Baptiste Beauvoir, these are the drivers on their in the second group, ready on their warming up laps to set their first flying laps. What about Baptiste then? I mean, he had a shocker in that first race, which didn't feature at all after contacting the opening stages.
Yeah, not really sure what's happened with Baptiste. He was so quick in the online series, and he's come here and just not really performed in the way we expect him to. It's a great onboard shot though, what it's like to try and tackle this Tokyo course in the wet, in this Porsche 911. It's a Group 3 car. You don't tend to run traction control just to help you rotate a bit better as well. You see a lot of his corners, they're blind. Shut the car in, you have to know where the corner opens up to, and the layout, of course, of the course to make sure you get the best possible line through here. So soft on the throttle, as soon as you put it in the straight line, nail the power, and now look to above your head now, looking for a place to brake. You're going to brake up around this green sign coming up. Hit the brakes nice and hard, try and brake in a straight line here, and then take a long, wide line and focus entirely on the exit. You can see they're both wide, going a little bit too wide. Straighten up in a straight line on the throttle there. The rear doesn't quite grip as he wants it to, and now it's a drive to the line.
So Beauvoir then ready to start his first flying lap. Just saw Ryota Kokubun as well coming in towards that final corner as he gets ready to start his flying lap then. So Baptiste Beauvoir comes into the tunnel, and it's interesting here because of course there's no water into the tunnel. There's a blaze of water though as you come out of it and on to start this lap. So the tunnel, the timing line is actually in the tunnel, and he'll come out of it again to come down toward that first corner. So Baptiste Beauvoir then ready to try and line things up into the spray, into the daylight, to start his first and only flying lap here then within this session. Once to watch in this one, I reckon Cody Nikolinikovsky, he can be quite handy in the wet conditions. Angel Enestrosa, he knows this Porsche 911 pretty well, so he can be pretty quick too.
He also needs to have a good result after race 1, taking 0 points from the first round. A big lot of understeer there for Beauvoir at T1. That's very easy to do, and likely will put him a couple of attempts down before the lap's even really started. There's Ryota Kokubun as well. Of course, Japanese driver on home soil, braking just after the 150 marker coming into T1. Best place to try and slow the car down. It's also uphill as well, so you can, even in the wet conditions, you can afford to brake a little bit later, let gravity do a little bit of the braking for you. Here's Jose Serrano, someone who's had a lot of talk about him. Very, very quick guy in the run-up to this event. Again, not quite able to perform in race 1, but still 2 races to go.
Yeah, a bit of a qualifying specialist is Jose Serrano, so expected to be pretty quick. Don't worry too much, by the way, about the first sector times, because, of course, it's just a straight line, essentially. There's nothing really to be lost or gained through there. It's in the corners where these drivers are going to be gaining or losing the maximum amount of time. Here is Koke Lopez then. He's on his flying lap. Just having a look at the sector times then that are coming through for these drivers. And here is Takuma Miyazono. He's ready to start his first flying lap. Baptiste Beauvoir, he'll be making his way pretty far now through this lap, coming into, in fact, the final corner. He's 0.3 of a second shy as it stands at the moment, so it's not been particularly that much of an exciting lap here for the Frenchman. Let's have a look at his line then into this final corner. Jimmy was saying about taking a nice wide line through there. You can see that quite deep. Yeah, he's just not turning at all. Just doesn't want to grip up, does it, that front end in any way, shape or form. And then you can see him getting the power on, just sliding the rear, and you can see how much time he's lost as a result of that understeer there.
Yeah, it's difficult with this. You want to try and rotate the car early, which might sound counterproductive for the wet, but you need to get the car turning. If you leave it to the last minute like that, you see what happens. If the front tyres do not bite, and you end up just waiting, really, until you finally get the bite and then get the car to turn. And here's Cody, 4 tenths down, so not quite where he'd want to be, but it should put him a little bit further up the order. So no, only good enough for 8th place. Meanwhile, Ryota Kokuben on a flyer of a lap right now, up at the 2nd sector. Will he be able to carry that to the line for the 3rd? Will he take pole position away from Patrick Blajan? Let's find out.
Over the line he comes, and he does. Brilliant stuff there for Ryota Kokuben then. Fantastic lap time for him. Angel Estrose is just 0.2 seconds shy. This could be a good qualifying for him. Puts him up into P4 then, not bad at all. Jose Serrano, though, is on a charge. He comes to the line, and Serrano, once again, on pole position as it stands. Phenomenal lap from the Spaniard here. Adriano Carrazza, nothing really to write home about, but what a lap there from the Spaniard.
Yeah, qualifying specialist, she called it right there, Tom. Putting it on pole position by about a tenth, which is night and day with these guys. Koke Lopez, not quite the same for him though. Half a second down at the moment on his lap. He'll drive to the line, probably end up somewhere 9th or 10th around there by my estimate. Look at that 10th, isn't he clever? And there's Takuma Miyazono as well. He's fast at the moment. Up on Jose Serrano even. This could be pole again for the Japanese driver. It is. There you go. A 2:11.5 for Takuma Miyazono. Displaces Jose Serrano right at the last second. And again, 2 poles out of 2 for Takuma Miyazono.
So a mixed up grid then awaits us ahead of race 2. We're at the Tokyo Expressway in Porsche 911s. It's time to see what's going to happen in race 2 of the Nations Cup World Finals. Cars lined up on the grid then ahead of race 2 for the Nations Cup World Finals. Porsche 911s, and as you can see, a very wet circuit here. This is going to be exciting. Takuma Miyazono lines up on pole position, 9th of course in race 1, P1 so far in race 2. Jose Serrano is alongside him. Next up on the grid, Ryota Kokuben. Alongside Ryota, you can see Patrick Blajan there in 4th position, the Hungarian driver. Difficult race 1 for him. He'll want to try and turn things around. Valerio Gallo lines up P5, of course, our winner from race 1, with Angel Estrose down in 16th in race 1 and 6th position on the grid for race 2. Andrew Brooks is lining up P7, the North American driver. And in P8, it's Rick Kevelam in P4. In P8 rather, sorry, after finishing P4 in race 1. Giorgio Mangano is in at 9th position. Whilst completing the top 10 is Lucas Bonelli, the Brazilian driver. Outside of it is Koke Lopez down in P11. And P12 on the grid is Adam Tapai, the Hungarian. Hasn't really featured so far here in the Nations Cup. Cody Nikolikovsky down in 13th place. What's happened to Cody's pace? Maybe he'll resurge with it a bit further forwards in this race. Then comes Adriano Carrazza in P14. P15, Baptiste Beauvoir, a very challenging qualifying lap, but not as bad as this man here, Tomoyuki Yamanaka. 16th place on the grid. Difficult start of the race then for him at least.
Yeah, it's been very tricky for a lot of drivers now. Just a little bit of time to breathe, to concentrate. Got a long race ahead, a very tricky race ahead in these wet conditions and a very long run down to the start-finish line. So let's take it all in, relax, and it'll be a good T1.
Steve, who's your hot pick for the start of this race and who are you keeping an eye on?
I'm going to be looking at Patrick Blajan. I know that he has potential to deliver in these World Tour races. He never seems to quite be able to win races, but I know he has the potential to do it, so I'm going to be watching out for him.
Cheers, Steve. So then, here comes Takuma Miyazono, ready to lead the field towards the timing line. Wet conditions at the Tokyo Expressway for race number 2 then. Who is going to claim the checkered flag in 13 laps' time? We're about to find out as we head towards that green flag then. Miyazono from Serrano, Kokuben. Then comes Blajan and Gallo. All of these drivers could feature very heavily in the first few corners. Who's going to take the flag, though, and who is going to be crowned the winner of race 2 of the Nations Cup World Final? We're about to find out as we go racing. And then here in Japan, as Miyazono leads the field on home soil through in towards the daylight as we come into the wet conditions then. So Miyazono in the lead then, but for how long? Because Jose Serrano is very close behind him. And of course, it's a long run down towards that first corner. You can see the advantage of the slipstream. You can see Serrano pulling out of the slipstream, going side by side as we come up towards the first corner. The Spaniard is ready to try and take the lead away, and it has taken the lead away. Meanwhile, you can see Ryota Kokuben there is on the outside of Miyazono. They're 3 wide nearly down to the first corner. Who's going to blink first, and are they all going to be able to hold on? into the first turn. Serrano on the inside, Kokeman on the outside, Miyazono side by side, Blajan versus Gallo. They're all snaking their way through the first corner, and somehow they all manage to make it through, facing in the right direction as well as Kokeman loses out to Blajan.
In the background, Gallo and Kokeman very, very close together at the moment as well. And yeah, I'm very surprised they'll got through their clean free wide at one point. Actually, one in the wet in these Porsches, incredibly impressive to do that. So here's Patrick Blajan. Strong start for him still. It's at this point really, it's just making sure you get through the first couple of laps without a big mistake, because everyone's very close together. If you make a mistake, you're going to get shuffled big time towards the back of the pack. But it looks like Miyazono and Serrano starting to pull a little bit of the gap to Blajan.
Steve, where should we be looking at the overtaking opportunities here on this lap? Where are drivers going to be thinking about sending a move?
Yeah, I mean, you've got this long straight. It goes on seemingly forever, and you can actually overtake someone and get slipstream back again. So
2 seconds, Steve.
That's what's all going to happen.
Sorry, Steve. There was contact with Kokeman, and Valerio Gallo has caused an absolute massive concertina in the middle of the pack there. Contact between Gallo and Kokeman started that all off. They're both facing the right way, but they've both gone tumbling down the order as a result.
A40 traffic jam there, wasn't it, Thomas? They all stopped trying to get by each other, and there's just no way around when the track gets blocked like that, and that's given a big gap to the guys ahead. They'll drive down into the hairpin. Brooks somehow up in 4th place now. He's somewhere out of all of this. Kokeman there on the inside. They all try and find a little bit of spot on tarmac to accelerate on. Can barely find out what's going on. There's a sea of Porsches here in the spray as Kokeman comes out in 4th and Andrew Brooks up into 5th. So he'll be happy with that. But yeah, I'm not surprised there. It's under investigation.
That's the understatement of the century. I mean, it's like watching a NASCAR race. They're all so close together between one another. Here comes Kokeman then with Andrew Brooks very close behind, and you can see them almost trying to push one another down this straight. Here comes Mangano pulling out of the slipstream on Andrew Brooks as they come through the tunnel and in towards the daylight then at the start of lap number 2. No penalties between Gallo and Kokeman. Stewart's deeming that as a racing incident. Meanwhile, here is Serrano versus Miyazono. Miyazono is into the race lead once more ahead of the Spaniard, but is Serrano going to be thinking about a look before too long to try and get himself now back out in front?
So they're working together, they're bump drafting, they're pushing each other down the straight, and Miyazono, they're getting very aggressive on the front, and they're all in the wall. They're all in the wall behind them. Big crash at the back of the field there. Brooks comes out in 4th, Gallo 5th, Kokeman down to 6th, and they're still tagging the wall. They're all together. There's not enough room for all of them through there. Luca Bonelli has come up from pretty much the back of the field from 10th place up into 6th. So has Karatzi following them back up again. Wow, I'd love to see a replay of that. Steve, did you see what happened there? Because there's about 4,000 cars on one bit of circuit there.
I think it's actually 8,000 cars, Jimmy, because I just really honestly can't keep up with this. I think the stewards behind me here are going to have their work cut out to try to work out what the hell is going on at the moment.
Yeah, I had a quick word with the stewards before we got this one underway, and they said, oh, we're not looking forward to this. There's going to be so much going on. It's only lap 2, my God. God dear. Well, no such problems though for Miyazono and Serrano. They've got a bit of clear track in front of them, don't have any immediate threat from behind. Patrick Blajan there in 3rd place is 1 second back. Just to keep you aware of this, by the way, we shouldn't be expecting any pit stops at all in this race. It's a lights to flag sprint. There's no need to change the tyres. There's no need to worry about fuel consumption over these 13 laps.
Skating all over the place right now. Miyazono had a really good middle sector there. He's pulled nearly a second on Serrano. So that's all we have to do. You have to get away in that middle part of a circuit so you then don't get slipstreamed on this massive straight coming now to start another lap. So Serrano actually a bit quicker out there than Miyazono was. Here's Brooks, Gallo, Bonelli and Kokeman, the second group, so to speak. Now, will they work together? Will we see a little bit more bumping down there? I'm not sure of the drivers' briefing whether this is something that they've outlawed. Sometimes they do have a bit of a chat about that. Tom, have you seen much about that?
Yeah, I'm fairly sure they would have outlawed bum drafting. They do in other races, so I don't see why that would be any different here. Then you can see Gallo then into the slipstream here. He pulls out on Andrew Brooks. Meanwhile, Kokeman in the background pulling out on Lucas Bonelli there as well. This is just a sea of lights coming through the tunnel as they come to start the 3rd lap here of 13 at the Tokyo Expressway. Still Miyazono that leads, but look at this gaggle of cars. Once again, they're shuffling and changing positions. Brooks versus Bonelli side by side. Kokeman in there as well. Gallo sits at the back of the train as they all come cascading in towards that first corner. Side by side we go as we come into there. Kokeman on the inside, Bonelli on the outside. Brooks involved in the mix there as well. They somehow all managed to make it through, but some of them ending up in the wall towards the outside there. Meanwhile, you can see they go side by side further back as well, as Carrazza is handed a 2-second penalty for colliding with another car, and now we come back into an opportunity for things to just try and hopefully settle down for a little bit.
I was going to say, I think it calmed down a little bit in the T1, but nope, they're all go flying in there, of course, and just about keeping out of the wall and out of each other. On board with Valerio Gallo, our race 1 winner, currently down in 7th place, not where he'd want to be in the moment. You can see Ryota Kokibun up there in 4th, and after that, big gap to Plajan, Serrano and Miyazono. So, stay on board with Valerio Gallo. Good driver's eye view of what it's like to follow someone in the spray around here. Visibility is definitely a thing. Even in, of course, in simulation, visibility can be difficult with the spray being kicked up. Gallo doing a good job to following the lights of the car in front. And now we come up again to getting towards the end of the circuit. It's one of the big overtaking spots here. We go for a right, go for a left, and it's a big lunge down to the hairpin, the tightest part of the course, that is. That's the best place to overtake if you can get alongside the car in front.
The top two have pulled out their gaps to 1.4 seconds. Big old wiggle there for Lucas Benelli as he tried to get the power down, but no grip underneath his rear tyres at the moment. But 1.6 seconds it now sits between Miyazono and Serrano, back to Patrick Blajan, who is in 3rd place, who's kind of all on his own. And I imagine, given the state of what's happening behind him, he'll probably be quite pleased about being on his own. Another big slide there for Lucas Benelli as he came through the right-hander. That's allowed Andrew Brooks to come cascading on through into P5 as they come down the start-finish straight.
Yeah, Brooks has been defending that from Benelli at this point, and they took different lines through there. You see Benelli took a bit of a sharper line, so whilst he gained on the corner, he couldn't get the exit. The exit angle was a bit too tight to get the power down. So now Miyazono and Serrano back together again, and this time Serrano's going to put on by, and there's not really much Miyazono can do here, apart from just go, all right, well, if you're going to do that, I'll do that again myself. Jumped into the slipstream, and then there will be no doubt fighting down towards T1. Here's 5th, 6th and 7th still completely glued together here. And this Coque Lopez getting involved. He's again come from the back of the field trying to make his best of this race. Coque Lopez, a great charger from the back, but he's got a lot of work to do to get up towards the front of the pack. Here's Gallo, Brooks and Benelli, and there is Coque Lopez, sends it in there and just sort of...
Sorry. How did he make that? I have no idea.
That was quite funny because he jumped in there and just slowly, oh no, and just fell back off down to 8th place again. But be a bit less aggressive, Coque. We'll get a penalty doing that too much.
Steve, what do you reckon of things out there so far?
Pretty intense. I'm just looking at Miyazono and Serrano at the front of the pack. They're working together to try and pull away from Blasan. Down the straight, slipstream past each other, slipstream back past each other. They're gaining a couple of tenths every time. It's just free time. So at the moment, they're going to work it out between each other at the end of the race instead. So for now, just working together.
Cheers, Steve. Thanks very much indeed for that. I just wanted to say, by the way, very quickly, how the tables turn. Giorgio Mangano, 2nd place in race 1, down at the back by 2.3 seconds in race 2. How things have gone wrong for him.
Yeah, how the turntables.
I knew that was coming. I knew it was coming.
But yeah, poor Mangano. Just strong first race and then just forgot to turn up to the 2nd race. But it's Coque Lopez. Will we see any more big sends? I encourage them because they make for fantastic viewing. More of a slow burn of this race, and I say that because you're sort of just setting yourself up to be on the right bit of track for the ends of the race. While people are still lunging at each other as time goes on, as Coque Lopez just gives Benelli a little tap, say, hello, remember I'm still here, mate, and Benelli there responds by just booting it coming out of the right-hander. What matters really is where you are here on the last lap. So they'll all be trying to position their cars to benefit themselves come that time in the race.
It sounded like a cat's on some lino there was Lucas Benelli trying to get the power down coming out of that final corner. Meanwhile, here are the duos of the race lead of Serrano and Miyazono, who are still working together, pulling up the slipstream of one another. Miyazono hits the front then at the start of lap 5. They've now managed to gap Patrick Blajan by nearly 3 seconds. The thing is, this is all, of course, fair in war until one of them is going to have to they keep happy to wave the white flag to each other at this stage in the race, but of course it's all going to come to a head towards the end. Meanwhile, you can see 5th position with Gallo, Brooks and Benelli. Here comes Lopez, nearly 4 wide into the first corner, but we go 3 wide just to try and make things a bit more sedate. However, Gallo's on the inside, you can see Brooks on the outside, Benelli ready to come through, Lopez there on the inside as well, into the next right-hander which follows. Somehow they all managed to make it through facing the right way. Gallo in front ahead of Brooks, ahead of Lopez, ahead of Benelli for now at least.
I never thought this circuit and Porsches and rain would just promote pack racing. That's what we've got here at the moment. There's a 3rd pack here from 5th to 9th. Van Galen and Stroza getting involved as well after disaster in the first race. And it's just if you make a mistake, if you're, say, Gallo in front of the pack, you go wide at a corner, you have 4 cars that are going to just dive on through, and then you'll be back in the pack and have to start again, try and work your way back up. We're still on board with the Stroza roof cam here as well. You can see just how close you have to get to the walls to be quick around here. Sparks being kicked up with the cars in front. They're going to get a bit too close to the walls, but makes it with some very interesting high-risk racing, and that's what we like here on GT Sport.
That's exactly what we've got as well, isn't it? It's just wonderful to see all of these drivers treating each other relatively well. It was a bit chaotic in the first couple of laps, but they seem to have calmed their act down a bit, given that, as you said, Jimmy, we've got a few packs racing against one another. I just want to say, Cody Nikolakowski, I was expecting a bit more from him in these World Finals, to be honest.
Yeah, I think maybe not quite where he wants to be in terms of speed. It's a shame to see him so low down the field. We used to see him fighting at the top of the grid, but we know he's quick usually in the last race. He saves himself for the finals, I think, but maybe he needs a few more points before them, because right now he's only on 8. Here is, again, this massive squabble for Benelli, Lopez, Brooks, Gallo, Stroza, and now more. Beauvoir in there as well. And Adam Taipei is getting involved. Here is Jose Serrano again, just driving by Takuma Miyazono. Guess what's going to happen now? Miyazono's going to get into a slipstream and go back by him, probably into T1. And as Steve has been saying, they've just been working together. Steve, I've got a good question while you're there, mate. If you're Patrick Blajan, can you even do anything here?
I don't think so. There's basically nothing he can do other than hope that they wipe each other out. That could happen at the end of the race.
Oh, Steve,
mate,
I'm going to cut you across because we're 3 wide now, bashing 4 wide now, coming down on T1. Someone's going to have to give because they aren't all going to fit through there physically. And Brooks comes out ahead. Gallo is in 6th now. Someone's made a bit of a mistake there. I think that was Beauvoir just getting sideways coming out. Guys, calm down. You got half the race left yet.
Goodness me, you're going to have a heart attack if you carry on with that sort of tone. Christ almighty. Steve, sorry, come back to your original point then. What were we saying about Patrick Blajan there?
Yeah, I think Blajan basically doesn't have any chance unless Serrano and Miyazono do something absolutely horrific to each other, which you never know, could happen. But at the moment, they're gaining about half a second every lap just by slipstreaming past each other. It's free time, and they're making the most of it.
So Miyazono, by the way, wins this race from Serrano. Points-wise, they will be drawing going into the last race. If Serrano wins, it will be 27-23 in favour of Serrano. So these guys definitely cementing themselves as proper contenders in this series. Valerian Gallo, he's the one that needs to, I think, try and move up a little bit. Realistically, his best place now is probably going to be 4th in front of the big pack of cars. I'll say that now, actually. Looks like Coachman's got away a little bit. So he needs every place possible to take those as many points as possible into the last round.
And Steve, just whilst we've got you here as well, I wanted to know, Serrano and Miyazono, they're battling against one another at the moment, helping each other out, increasing their advantage to Patrick Blajan. But when are they going to blink? When are they going to decide, to make their move? Do you think it's going to come down to the final lap if it stays like it is?
I think it'll be the last lap. And the thing you have to really watch out for is the final hairpin on the very last lap, because it can actually be the car behind which can actually drag past before the finish line, so watch out for that.
Yeah, cheers, Steve. Thanks very much. Here we go. Takuma Miyazono ready to take the lead away once more from Jose Serrano and back out in front as we start lap 17. Don't worry about that as you come out onto the wet tarmac. It's not too much of a transition here at this Tokyo Expressway circuit. The tyres won't be lighting up because, of course, they're going a lot faster than they would be if they were coming out of a slower corner. Meanwhile, here we go once again, back with P5. Valerio Gallo ahead of Andrew Brooks. It's splintered away, this little group here, because you can see in the background there, it's now Benelli, Beauvoir, and also Coque Lopez are involved in a 3-way scrap for position here.
I was just thinking on what Steve was saying. I think basically you're just rehearsing the entire way to the end of the race and finding out where you need to be in order to pass the other guy so he can't repass you on that long straight. And that's essentially what the race is going to be for Serrano and Miyazono at this point, just trying to get that right. So now Gallo, he's finally got to the head of his group. Can he put away from Andrew Brooks? Brooks has had a decent race so far, actually, a decent series so far. He's currently in the live point standings, as you can see, would just be in the top 5, so well within a shot of the overall title if the last race goes well at the moment. But nice to see it quite close at the top, but he needs to definitely come away with 5th, ideally 4th, but I think Kokeman now is probably a bit too far away.
Well, nice to see Brooks doing well, like you say, Jimmy. I mean, we've seen him at World Tour events with his head in his hands, crying in his lap because racing just hasn't worked out for him. You know, we know he's got the speed, we know he's got the potential. We saw that with his performances in the North America regions in the top 16 Superstars this year, and of course in the regional finals for the Americas as well. And it's just good to see him fighting up the sharp end of the field and having, at the moment, and I really hope I'm not cursing this as the commentators seem to do so, having some good luck.
Brooks bias coming in strong there, Tom. I'm going to write.
He's got the best name in motorsports.
I am writing to Gran Turismo about you, Tom. That's not allowed. But yeah, to say that Andrew has been robbed in other races would be a bit of an understatement. He is so talented. He's been caught in a lot of instances that have just not been his fault. And this time, hopefully, as you say, we'll be doing well. We're on board now with Lucas Spinelli, someone who did very well in the Supra series, took 2nd in that overall, a great result for him. Currently down in 8th position, not doing as well here, and starting to fall away from that pack a little bit. But Baptiste Beauvoir, very impressive drive from him so far. He's made up a ton of places, actually. He's come up 8 places from his starting position, so 9 now as he goes up into 6th. 5th, so 10.
Changing all the time, isn't it? Baptiste Beauvoir, lovely to see him progressing forward after an absolute mare of a first race. Meanwhile, Jose Serrano back in front. Carrazza versus Tapai. They have had an incident under investigation. Meanwhile, here is Beauvoir versus Gallo, side by side into the first corner. Beauvoir on the inside, holds on to 5th place with Gallo trying to attack, but too deep into the corner there for him. Allows Gallo through, and then Brooks comes through as a result of that as well. So from 5th down to 7th at the expense of one mistake for Baptiste Beauvoir. So, well, just goes to show that running wide in one corner can cost you very dear.
Well, it is here, French trained. Oh, bad to worse for Adam Tapai there. Plus 3 seconds for colliding with another car. We didn't see the incident. I'm hoping that at some point maybe Steve can grab that for us and describe what happened. But I'm going to assume just drove into the back of someone and he won. That's what I'd imagine would be.
Easy to do so. I mean, given the closing speed and given how close these drivers are running with one another as well. Skating the wall there on the outside is Valerio Gallo.
Well, I drove this earlier and I could barely get around on my own, let alone with other cars around me. So it's a lot easier. It looks a lot easier than it is, I should say. Looking back now from Valerio Gallo, again leading that second pack. Still 4 cars in this pack, 5 cars, sorry, in this pack. So any small mistake and you're going to get mugged.
It's not working out, by the way, for Angel Estrada. He was in the battle for the top 5 earlier on in this one. He's now 2.5 seconds or so down on 9th position of Lucas Spinelli. We saw him have a warning come up on screen a few laps ago. I wonder what happened there, because there was an incident under investigation and a warning being given. Meanwhile, here is Baptiste Beauvoir on the inside of Valerio Gallo as they come out of the penultimate corner. A sharp trot across the nose there for Valerio Gallo. Beauvoir now into the slipstream once again and out of the slipstream as they come in towards the channel, side by side between them. And who is going to get the drag down? I wonder whether Beauvoir pulled out just a fraction too early there, but it looks like he's got good momentum coming on to start lap number 8.
So this will be interesting now, because the guys behind are going to have a tow, so they'll just get back involved again. But I'm interested to see how Gallo and Beauvoir treat each other. They've been fighting each other all year in the online series. They've been 2 of the fastest guys out there, so I would love to see how that turns out. But Brooks and Lopez, because there was a bit of a tow fight going on, or a lack of a tow fight, both Gallo and Beauvoir lost out. They got freight trained by those with the tow behind. Here's Cocaine Lopez, and again, who's coming from the back of the field. Puts himself up now into 5th place. Maybe no, Brooks holds it at the moment. And it's going to be anyone's game going on to the last lap as there's contact between Gallo and Lopez. Lopez gathers it up, though, masterfully. It's so hard to keep this car straight around there as Gallo proves my point sideways coming down the hill, but a little bit of contact there. I would think maybe a racing deal.
Steve, I believe you've been looking at some of the incidents that have happened out on track. What have you managed to deduce?
Yeah, just been looking at some of the incidents between Lopez and Inestrosa into the final hairpin. And it's just really, they're just too close to each other, basically. And one tiny misjudgment on the brakes from Inestrosa. He's at the inside, pushes Coco Lopez out, but Coco Lopez looks like he's recovering quite well.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Steve. So Lopez then into P7, Inestrosa down into 11th position as a result of the incident that happened a couple of laps ago. Meanwhile, now running aboard here with Lucas Spinelli, and he's kind of in the pound seats here. If anything kicks off between them, but I say he's in the pound seats. If he has oversteering moments like that and ends up in the wall, he'll be out of the pound seats and into some other kind of lesser seat.
Is there a tier system for seats?
There is possibly a tier system for seats.
I think this seat I'm on right now is probably at the bottom of it. It's one of those seats you find out underneath a wrestling ring. Here is Jose Serrano. He's behind Takuma Miyazono, and again, this is what this is going to be until the end of the race. I've been watching the driver cams of both of them. They both look quite relaxed. They sort of just know, well, what we can really do right now apart from sit here and just draft each other. As Steve alluded to earlier, it's going to be just a last lap lunge, and you see Serrano may be experimenting, and right now, if he had that sort of exit coming onto the last lap, he would come second. So he knows he's got to be closer than he was there, otherwise he's not going to be able to get away. I do feel for Patrick Blažej. He's got left behind. He's in no man's land at the moment. 4 seconds behind this fight, a second ahead of Ryota Kokubun. He'll be hoping to stay ahead of that. He does not want to deal with that. Interestingly, Brooks maybe, in fact, Brooks has got clear of this group now. If he can stay there, he might be able to put away from this group that he's been stuck with the entirety of the rest of the race.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a hard push, as you mentioned earlier on, Jimmy, to pull into the gap of Ryota Kokubun. Meanwhile, here we go once again. Kogan Lopez, Lucas Benelli in the background there. Gallo versus Beauvoir, the two EMEA regional stalwarts. So side by side we go into that first turn. Lopez now back ahead. Here comes Gallo trying to go up the inside of Lucas Benelli into the right-hander. He pulls along the inside and goes through into 7th place. Beauvoir is ready to try and take advantage and ready to try and pounce here as well. So the high-speed chess game continues as they come down the hill and in towards the S-bend. It's one at a time through here, unless you fancy a face full of concrete, and these drivers on this occasion do not, so they're able to keep it on the straight and narrow. But now Lopez is the driver who's going to have to be keeping a watchful eye on his mirrors.
This is going to be really interesting, this game. We're going to get to the point now, as you see him squirm through there. Actually a bit of contact with the wall for Lopez. That's going to allow Gallo to get back by, coming up the hill. The same thing happened behind with Benelli and Beauvoir as well. He's going to slide on by up into 8th position. Every point counts at this point, because we're going to go into that final round. It's double points, and if you have any sort of advantage over